And welcome, guys. This is the Toolkit Summit 2017. I am Doc Williams, and we have the pleasure to be with who today?
Oh, Jessica Webster.
Sam Pogue.
I wanted to beat him. I was like, beat me first.
I was like trying to be polite.
Sorry.
This is the dynamic of our relationship. I'm considerate. She's cutthroat. You know,
it works out. It works out, guys. So, so before we go into the whole discussion, tell us a little bit about Fitness Break Room and what you guys created.
Oh, so Fitness Break Room started out as a concept about bringing the fitness industry together to help level up. And my day job at Onnit is I oversee strategic partnerships as well as education. And I had so many emails coming into me about, well, can I do an Onnit certification instead of a NASM? And is that how I become a trainer? And it was like kind of sort of maybe yes. And then I had gone to the Barbell Mastermind, and ironically, that's not where we met. But I'd gone there and presented this concept of this is my biggest opportunity. And I wanted to write an ebook and maybe start a coaching business on helping brand new trainers in the industry get in and find success and avoid that 75% attrition rate that most trainers experience. A few months later, she called me and was like, hey, I would love to do some marketing webinars to the Onnit Academy trainers. Can we set that up? And I said, actually, I'd rather talk to you about this idea that I have about building this business around this concept and bringing her marketing clout and technical skills and organizations, basically anything that needs to be successful to run a business, she does. I'd like to say I bring the beauty. I don't do that either.
You do.
So I'm realistically here for show and for, like, I don't know, just to be a figure.
I love it. It's a great way to be, though. It's the best position.
Yeah. So yeah, Fitness Break Room started as initially this concept of helping trainers get into the industry, and now it's moved into a consulting agency focused around helping trainers understand their brand, help them understand how to use website, email, social media marketing, understanding what their presence is like, not only from a physical standpoint, but in an electronic and digital standpoint, and be able to help facilitate companies moving together and helping them proliferate products and moving on to things like the toolkit to start building e-products, or going on to deeper business or facilities management and coaching.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we're happy to have you. It's a very unique brand that you guys have, and there's so many different aspects to it. So we're happy to have your expertise here, and thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Happy to be had.
Happy to be had.
Love it. Love it.
Pretty cool industry to be in, considering when you think about the progression of someone who goes from, just getting out of school into becoming a successful trainer or some other type of career in the fitness industry. It's everyone has a really interesting story. So that's what we're really excited about bringing to people, is that storytelling aspect. So you were just on our show, which isn't going to air for maybe a month from now. So this will probably come out before then. But you have an amazing show. And because your thing isn't to tell your story, you're more of an educator, people don't get the chance to see or to understand what you've gone through to get to where you are now. So that's basically the gist of our podcast, is really interviewing really interesting people in the industry to show other people, okay, there are very odd and backwards ways where you can get to this place that you may not ever imagine you are. And these are all, it's super fun.
Yeah, and it's awesome. Like, yes, I look forward to seeing all the new episodes. Like you were just talking about all the different personalities on there. It's just like, it's so eclectic. It's so all over the place. It's a beautiful thing to see. So I'm excited. We'll put, whenever it airs, this will be in the Toolkit Summit 2017. So we'll add a link to that podcast episode as well.
Let's just choose the URL right now. Let's say it's fitnessbreakroom.com/Doc-Williams.
There we go. I love it. I love that already. Let's do it. We're going to put that in right now.
Very cool.
So Jess, first of all, because there's two of you, you've got so much energy. We can't just have one presentation for you. We had to break it up in two. Jess, you talked to me. You're like, we actually need two different ones. I was like, all right, I guess we got to do it now. So we're going to be with Fitness Break Room. for 2 different segments. The first one, this is going to be focused on how to refine your brand and role in the fitness industry. So that's going to be in the first part. And guys, don't forget, you're going to have a follow-up one that will be how to build a powerful professional network in the fitness industry. And that will be the second parter. So let's dive into this first one. First, Jess, tell us what we need to do.
Okay, so in these interactions that we've had with our pretty extensive Rolodex of professional athletes, high-level trainers, entrepreneurs who own fairly successful fitness businesses, we found that the things that they have in common, they're very few and far between actually, but what they have is a good understanding of who they are and where they fit into the system. And they also utilize their uniqueness to take advantage of the professional network that's out there already. So if you listen to a lot of fitness podcasts, you'll recognize that there are a lot of similar guests. They kind of run through the podcast circuit. We're all friends, right? And this friendship is so powerful in so many ways because you get to hang out with people you like for purposes other than just to have a few beers and just to chill out and train. It's like you can actually build your businesses together. So that's where this 2-parter came into play. Sam really excels at building professional networks and has built a great career for himself in that realm, where I help people understand what their role in their brand is so that they can get into a place where they expand their network. So the first thing I think we can go through is what a brand is. I'll pass that question off to you, Doc. What do you think a brand is? I know it's a complicated answer.
Oh, man. You put me on the spot. I would say it's basically the essence of a company, and it encompasses the personality of that said entity. And yeah, that's what I would say.
That's definitely it. That's like its intangible sense. It's like the flavor. It's that visceral reaction that you get when you experience a brand in that subconscious sort of way. And then in a tangible sense, you know, it's like the logo, it's the shirt, it's the muscle.
By the way, where can we buy these shirts? I mean, this is perfect product placement.
Thanks. We have 2 right now. I'm willing to sell mine for like $15.
I accept cash, check, and full frontal nudity.
Oh, awesome. That's excellent. The PayPal link will be below in this section as well. Thank you.
Or my phone number. You want to pay that way.
That's good. So yeah, back to brand. Those are the brand elements, right? The logo, the color, the vision, the mission statement, and a lot of those things I actually talked about in the last Toolkit Summit 2016. I talked about how you can craft your vision and your mission and how you can communicate all of these things in a way that's very human to call in your ideal customer. All of those things are completely valid, but over the last year, I realized people in general just grow up very insecure in that you become an adult, all of a sudden you're like, who am I? I know that there are pieces of me that are true, but have I been Frankenstein together with just concepts of what I think I like of other people? And that's especially true for entrepreneurs, right? I'm sure you've talked to a lot of men and women who are just getting into the fitness industry who are starting to mimic what they see, and it's not exactly landing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at who they essentially envision, who they want to be, and it's just not who the market perceives them as. So I talk about this in my ebook, and I talk about this a lot, that a lot of trainers come out and they want to be the trainer that trains a ton of athletes. They want to train the LeBron Jameses of the world. And all of a sudden, they're doing all this marketing and all this brand exposure about trying to train athletes. And then realistically, it's Grandma Betty who's training with them, right? So my buddy Steve Fittinger, who was a trainer with me back in the day, 260-pound dude, played football and wrestled in college, has a big tat on his arm and a calf tattoo, like squats 700 pounds. And you would think that this dude probably trains a ton of powerlifters. Nope, he trained 60 to 70 to 80-year-old grandmas that loved him. And they literally would bring him a box of brownies every training session. This dude, like, he'd have this plate on top of the desk in the trainer area that were just like, yep, she brought me more brownies today. She brought me cookies. She brought me dinner. And I'm like, okay, so just because you go squat 700 pounds and you play football, that's not who resonated with you. But if you got so caught up in that early on to where all you were doing is putting this forward marketing out because you associate and attach value to being a power lifter, yet power lifters don't want to train with you, now it's like you're diving your brand into the ground and inevitably falling in this hole that is leading a lot of trainers to fail really early in.
Mm-hmm.
And so initially starting out, when you're going to figure out your brand as you go. And a trainer, you don't need to have this grandeur vision of like, okay, my brand says this about me. Like the market's going to tell you what your brand is, whether you're Onnit, whether you're FitAid, whether you're Fitness Break Room, whether you're Toolkit or Nike, right? The market told you who you're going to be very early in. And then you start to scale as you grow, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I think that's the problem. Like you just mentioned, a lot of times there is one set, or you think you're going to be perceived a certain way, and you go about it. But like you mentioned, the market's going to dictate that. And so you're going to have to really be prepared for that as well through your fitness journey.
Yeah, definitely. The market tells you, it gives you clues. But what you can't do, and what you can't do, is just look at market trends and data points, because that's not a real person, you know? I mean, who really wants to work with somebody who's looking at what's hot? Who's, like, if I'm looking for a personal trainer, if somebody looks at whatever they see here and they see a 29-year-old woman who grew up in Los Angeles, like, they're gonna make some assumptions about me that aren't necessarily true. I like pink and purple and all this other stuff, and that font that's so popular now, you know, like the cursive font or whatever. Like that stuff doesn't resonate with me. What resonates with me is a person who's going to really put themselves out there as them. So I'm going to take you guys through a brand activation process that I take some of my clients through. It's really fun. It's very extensive on their side, but I'm going to just shorten it up for the sake of this. But if you'd like to learn more about this, you can go to our website, fitnessbreakroom.com/brand activation, which is one word. And there I'll have a downloadable guide, totally free, that'll have all of the archetypes that I'm going to talk about. And it might possibly have some information on getting involved in this brand activation process. I don't know yet. I haven't really released this to the public yet. This is just like my one-on-one clients that I do this with. Anyway, so Doc, when you were on our podcast, you had talked about looking at other industries for clues as to how you can elevate things that you do. Because if we stay within the fitness industry, if we stay within IT or marketing, we're all just going to end up doing the same thing and we're never going to evolve, right? What were you looking at? You were doing something with Creative Live, right?
Yeah. So with Creative Live, they had a channel mainly just for crafts. And I just started watching the craft channel for a long time, just their different programs, and maybe too many. But when I was there, one was talking about how to set up for crafts fairs and how you would go about it. But also one was how to construct your catalog, how to start selling wholesale for different items and different products. And that is something totally out of the range of fitness that I'd ever seen. But there were so many things that I could apply in my business that I took from those classes.
It like awakens a part of your brain that you just, it just isn't awake when you're always in the certain bubble, right? You're like, oh, that's cool, we should try that. And even if it's weird, I mean, who cares, you know? We only live once.
Yeah, I mean, just one last thing. Like that's how I think I stood out at Mash's place. Like at Travis Mash's, there were so many tables that looked exactly the same. But no joke, I went on Pinterest and put my table together and put all of my it was bad, but it stood out and it was so like different that it wasn't this hardcore tent that was all like gunmetal black and everything. And like people like, who is this guy? And like I just had my table and I was doing therapy at the time, and I got all this referrals just from that one instance, but it was from all of the things that I learned from the craft channel.
Yeah, difference and newness stand out to people. It's an obvious thing. So a few of the things that I've gotten into lately and totally geeked out on have been superheroes, so like comics, and ancient texts. One is more interesting than the other sometimes. But one thing that I've found is that with trainers especially, and just with people in general, and marketing is all about people. It's just understanding yourself, understanding other people, what makes them tick, what gets people excited. People are, especially in the fitness industry, a lot like heroes in that we live a bit like martyrs. We sacrifice a lot to do a very service-oriented service for people who are literally coming out the other end happier and healthier because of it. Obviously, there are ways to do it so you don't have to be a martyr, but it's a common story, right? And
it's a rites of passage. Like,
yes.
People take pride in being a martyr, and it's like, dude, you're not scaling your business efficiently. Like telling me you worked 90 hours a week last week and made $5,000, like, or whatever, right, is like maybe not that impressive. Like, congrats for working hard, but that also tells me you have a lot of leaks in your business to where you're working a lot harder than you necessarily have to.
So I like to take that narrative and where can I meet them halfway? So superheroes, right? One of the things that superheroes all have in common is that they have their superpower and then they have this darkness that they're battling within themselves. So they're really, really great at something, but there's a common theme, the thing that they're great at that also makes them very weak and soft. And so I found that with this ancient text, one of my favorite ones is the I Ching. And it was written like, it's one of the oldest documents ever, written somewhere between the thousands and 750 BC or something like that. Anyway, it's a collection of parables, 64 parables that has since been turned into archetypes that has been used like up until this point for psychoanalysis research, for literature, for art, for business. It's just been used all over the place. And these 64 archetypes also are like superpowers, things that you're amazing at, things that humanity is amazing in. And they're also attached darknesses or shadows to them. So I found that while taking my clients through this brand activation process, they've been able to identify it with one primary gift, one primary superpower. And in that attached shadow or darkness is the thing that they are constantly struggling with on their own. It's a thing that they have been working on so actively their whole life that when they see it in other people, they know how to deal with it. They know how to address it because like, oh, I've dealt with that pain. I'm still dealing with that pain, but I've risen above, and this is how you can go about doing that too. So how does this all relate to branding? Well, when you think about how difficult it is to really plant your flag into a something and say, this is who I am, by having a guide of 64 ancient archetypes that has been widely internationally known to be a good representation of all of the gifts humanity brings to the world, you can kind of go through this and look at the clues that your life has given you and think, what is the thing that what is my life's work, right? Like what quality of mine transcends my job title? It's the way I am in the morning and at night with my kids, with my parents, with whoever, and it's this one great quality, and that is your brand. So if you go to our website, fitnessbreakroom.com/brand activation, that's the guide that I'll give you there. It's all of these 64 archetypes with the shadow and darknesses, where you can really contemplate which of these feels most like you, and then just own that, right? So mine is determination. That is the flavor of my brand. It's like how small steps, that is my brand. These are the things that you need to do to get where you want to go. I'm not really the person that's going to tell you where you want to go, but you tell me where you're going and I can show you the little itty bitty things to get you there.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. So it's almost like self-discovery. They really have to really take the time to really see what resonates with them and then act accordingly.
Yeah. And if you're going through the guide, you're having a difficult time picking out which of these superpowers you really want to like plant your flag in, you can look at all the darknesses and see which of them really like pulls at your heartstrings the most. So for Sam, when I put him through this process,
I haven't heard this, by the way.
I know.
Sam, fucking about to get leveled. Sorry,
he is really into commitment and reliability. And he doesn't like when people are unreliable or overcommittal. Yes?
It's really funny because I'm like single at 31 years old and super non-committal in that part of my life. Anyway, continue.
He wants people, if you're going to say you're going to do something, you do it.
Yes.
And you do it with all of your heart. And when people are looking, when they're not looking. And that seems to be your flavor brand. Like we said, we haven't talked about this, but this whole marketing thing is kind of a curse. Right. I feel like I put everyone through this. But then once you have that brand and you've really figured out, okay, what is my flavor as Jessica, as Sam, as Doc, then you can figure out, okay, how am I going to communicate this through whatever I do, whether it's training, whether it's fitness marketing, and that is through 6 different styles, which we'll go through right now. The first style of branding is boldness. And boldness, each of these styles has a spectrum of consciousness, I guess you could say. Like when companies are douchey and they're greedy, they vibe low, right? And so a company who vibes low and has a brand of boldness is the one that sells fear, right? A lot of gurus do this. You see it on Facebook ads all the time. It's so frustrating. These are people who like bring out fear in you that you didn't think you had, and then they try to sell you something that will cure that. If you're a bold brand though, and you're vibing high, like you're surrounded by good people, you're in a good place in life, and you're living in integrity, your brand brings comfort to people who are afraid. It brings security to people who are actually living in fear. Or it brings truth to people who are in denial. And I can think of a couple people for sure who have a bold brand. A couple of individuals would be Mike Bledsoe. He's a truth teller. It takes boldness to bring things out of people, to ask the right questions. And John Wolfe. John Wolfe, they do it very differently, but they are people who bring comfort to people's fears or truth to doubt, and they don't sell fear, but they do it with boldness. And I think it's one of the coolest brand styles.
Either way, no matter where you're at in the spectrum, you're putting yourself out there in one way or another, delivering that message.
Yeah, and it's intense work because you're dealing with people's insecurities. And so this style isn't for everyone. It's for people who like to get in there, really, and want to work people on a one-on-one level. The next kind is passion. And this is where I think Sam falls in. Again, haven't worked with him through this, but, and these are people who are really, they bring style, they bring flow, they bring an experience to the marketplace. They can take something bland and whatever, and when they say it, people remember it. Christmas Abbott is a passion type brand. Sam Pogue, passion brand. Who else?
Love it. Love it.
People who bring like creative expression. And this is a difficult one too. It's not intense in the same way that the bold brand is intense, but it's like this person has to be completely creatively free and authentic and not care about what anyone has to think about them, because that's when they start to become fake and unauthentic. Remember, there's that scale again. Companies who aren't doing it well, they try to create a fake experience and people call up that bullshit like so quick. And then there are people who bring that authentic experience. And it's like, damn, nobody could ever do that except for that person, because that is them. The third type of brand is a humor brand. So obviously these are companies who may have a dead serious message to get across, but they recognize that life is a balance of lightness and seriousness. And you can get some awesome messages across by showing the paradox of like life, right? Like this is how you see it and this is how it is, or other people see it. And that's the best type of humor, right? The kind that's deep and just like, oh, that's freaking smart.
Have you, and maybe this is off, maybe I shouldn't say this, but do you know the company Chubbies?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking that they were on, I can't remember if they were on some podcast. It might have been How I Built It, but they were talking about how although a lot of people don't take them serious, they have a beauty contest that they have with male and female audience, just clients, that they send in pictures, but they're trying to represent how a lot of times, although they think that it's just about the shorts, it's about you feeling comfortable about being you. And that's why they did a model search to show all the different types of people that wear their shorts. So it was a bigger message masked in comedy that a lot of people missed.
That's great.
Have you seen, like, for them in terms of like internet and Facebook marketing, they do a ton of like real person style, but they crush content. I mean, they're putting out 3 new ads a week, right? With different content and different people, and like just crushing the game with content.
Yeah, and it's them. It's like, all of them, it's so, they're not trying to, you know what I'm saying? Like some people, to try to emulate them, they're like, oh, we got to put out this much content to match them, but it's effortless for them, right? And when they do it, it just feels right every time because they're just being true to their own personality.
Yeah.
This branding stuff isn't rocket science, you know, it's human nature. Like if you're good at being funny, then make your brand about humor. If you're not good at being funny, it doesn't mean that you can never bring humor into your branding. It's just like, you don't bring it every once in a while. You don't have to be everything. You don't have to be intense and super sexy and into the trends and funny and all these things. Like, again, look at the market, look at what people are telling you you are. Hey, you're super funny. Okay, I'm gonna take that as like a good piece of actual data and tuck that in somewhere, you know?
Thank God I'm not going after the sexy brand because I'd be effed.
Wait a minute, Sam. It's curated for a specific audience. Okay, don't sell yourself short on this.
That's ridiculous. Okay, the fifth type, we're on the fourth, is heart. So these are the brands that bring emotion and feeling back into business. And I feel like these people have the hardest job because business has become very sterile and kind of like, you know, there's friendships and then there's business. You know, we've all heard that saying, like, you don't want to get into business with friends. Like, what kind of world does that create? You know, like, what kind of business world have we created where you shouldn't get into business with your friends? It's insane, you know? So people who have heart driven businesses, they're the ones that recognize this. While the humor people make people laugh, you know, the heart people make them cry. You know, it just like breaks their hearts open. It's like, oh yeah. So some examples of this, I mean, this is actually a tough one for me to think of examples, but I can think of like nonprofits.
Humane Society, Sarah McLachlan, right? Show puppy dog. And then if I was going to sing it, but I don't want to ruin the podcast.
I can't even tell you how many times I've lunged for the TV whenever that comes up, like, no.
But everybody does it, right? And you're like, oh my God, 10 cents a day? I can totally give 10 cents a day, right?
Sure. It's true.
Impoverish kids in some third world country. Like all of that is some sort of emotive response that they're trying to stimulate for a cause that you don't necessarily have attachment to, but now you feel like you have attachment to.
Do you find that it would be the case for filmmakers, perhaps, that would evoke emotions, like that could do it? I think of like this one, Steve McQueen did like Hunger, 12 Years a Slave, those type. I just think about it because that was the last movie I cried at. I'm going to be honest with you right now. But I was thinking that it was ones that can either visually or through storytelling get you to have that emotional component. That's a true gift.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. Well, I would say yes. And if there is a theme of breaking people's hearts open that this director has, then I would say totally. That is his life's work. It's his brand as an individual. Absolutely. If the running theme was intensity and like mind expanding stuff, then he'd be a bold guy. So all these brand styles are less about your vocation and how you Oh, hey.
Oh, hello. Welcome back.
It's more about the underlying like reason why you do these things.
Makes sense.
So, yes. The fifth style is wisdom. And so falling under this category would be Angelo Cisco. It would be Shane Hines. It would be like a Nike type company. And these are companies that exist to, they're the leaders, right? This is the leader archetype. These are the type of people who show the masses what they're capable of and guide them in the right direction as leaders. On that spectrum of low to high, the companies and entrepreneurs who are not doing this well are the ones who make people dependent on them. You know, the tyrants in business who are like, this way is the only way of doing things, which is a big driving factor for Fitness Break Room, is that idea that fitness is about community, right? And we may have a lot of leaders, but no one has the right to be king shit of Poop Mountain.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Except for the guy who just went. He's clearly at the top.
True.
So this brand really needs to evoke a lot of love, but also a lot of power in the way that they deliver their message. This person needs to kind of remove themselves from the masses. It's less of a one-on-one communication with people and more of a communication to the audience sort of like standing up on a stage in a way. So you can already get the sense of how this person is going to communicate verbally this type of message. And the last person is a visionary type. And this is where, Doc, you and I fall into this with the Fitness Break Room podcast and with the Toolkit, whereas our brands are less about our own brands and more about 1 through 5 there that we just talked about. All these amazing products and personalities that are already in the industry. How can we step out of the industry and look at how can these people all work together in a way that there's industry synergy so we can all be prosperous? And it's almost like our only option is to be educators in the sense, because there's already so much cool stuff already out there. And it's like, how do we get all these things to work together so that everyone can evolve and lift each other up? And so you can kind of see how all of these different brand styles work together in unison. So if we do truly pick our archetype and then choose our style, there can be tons of people in the fitness industry all working together instead of so much competition.
I love that. I love that because I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think when they look at all the people in the space, they just become defensive and they don't realize that they can really be so different from one another. And so what are you trying to do? You're always trying to be better than the next person. You're always trying to show that you're better. But if you're just doubling down at what you as a person, there's no competition. Everyone can win in the end.
Absolutely.
There's only 2 absolutes in the world, and there's 2 things that people fear. Do you know what they are?
Sharks and no, I don't know.
People fear things that change and things that stay the same. Right? Those are the 2 absolutes that are guaranteed. Like, people will always fear what they don't understand, and people will always fear losing because they attach a value to something and they're scared of being wrong or someone else displacing their ideology for something else, right? Yet you fall into this pattern, either brand or individuals, that if your only tool's a hammer, then everything's gonna look like a nail, right? And so you need to understand how you can be malleable, not only from a branding standpoint, but from a presence standpoint, and be able to familiarize yourself with what else is going on in the market. That doesn't mean you don't deviate away from your brand or your message or your pattern, but it also means that you have the capacity to also see what else is out there and at least have the vision or the wisdom or the heart to take that information in and adjust how it's delivered, right? So Nike isn't for everyone, right? But their image is also, we're unapologetic about we're the fucking shit, right? We're gonna make neon yellow shoes cool. Why? Because we can, right? Onnit is another unapologetic type brand. FitAid, another unapologetic type brand. And it doesn't mean that you're not sensitive to others, right? It doesn't mean that you don't have empathy, but at the same time, you understand where you live, right? And then you try to work with how others perceive you, or you find a way to win together, right? In some capacity.
That's a really good point. I think we're going to have later on the show for the summit, I think Joe DeSena, who co-founded like Spartan Race, like that we were talking about, like not everyone, that's not, most likely you won't get silver sneakers or Zumba classes necessarily being at those events. But once again, it's what they stand for, what they're looking for. And I mean, there's a reason why one of them isn't one of the races called a death race, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's pretty bold. They understand what they need to do.
I mean, look at CrossFit. CrossFit has this perception of being hardcore, right? Yet when I met with you, I was going to the Wounded Warrior Games, or Working Wounded Games in DC, which is an adaptive athlete competition. So I taught a movement prep workshop to a bunch of amputees, paraplegics, people who've had pretty significant injuries that's left them as a adaptive athlete, whereas like all of us in this call are able-bodied athletes, right? So this perception of being super hardcore is what peripherally what the brand of CrossFit says, yet they have the capacity to also open their doors to be accepting of people with disabilities and provide them the platform to lift themselves up and proliferate their own personal messages as well.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's almost I think it's knowing that they're still true to their calling, but like you said, they're adaptive, that they're allowing all different types of ones that still have the same mindset to participate. And really, like you were talking about before earlier, that community aspect, like CrossFit, all of the different things that they expanded out to, it's not many people can replicate that or even come close to how they can do that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's interesting, this idea of community that we're trying to build. And that's really what stemmed FBR, Fitness Break Room, together, because this isn't our primary day jobs as every day, right? You know, Jessica has her own private marketing firm and works with clients like FitAid. I work for Onnit. And it's, you know, it allows us to say, though, that, you know, there's more people out there, and how can we leverage our resources to touch more people, which is how this really came into play. And so our concept for FBR is this concept of fit share, right? And like Jess says, we're not necessarily proliferating our own products and trying to splash the market with more online programming, more, I was sleeping on my sister's couch and now I'm a millionaire selling $9 million an hour of personal training. Yet, like, I have no idea who you are, right? But that, like, well, how can we proliferate what you are doing, what Toolkit is doing? How can we lead people there? Because to be honest, like, I joke with a lot of people, like, people are like, what the do you do? Like, my job, we're in Arizona, as you can see a bed in the background. We're not filming something weird. I mean, we could later.
Hey.
We're not filming something weird.
It's not on the schedule.
But today, just for instance, why we're in Arizona is because today I went and trained the Exos performance training team. And then I went and had a meeting with the Chicago Cubs strength staff, right? And then going into these meetings, like, sure, I have a message from Onnit and I have a message from FBR, but I have to be sensitive to what they attach value to. I have to understand where they're coming from, what lens of perspective that they're going to see me through, and recognize that and be able to read on the fly, like, ooh, okay, they're now not miming me. They're sitting back. They don't look content with what I'm saying. I need to change my image, right? The same thing with your brand, right? Oh, well, if I had this partnership, I'd be the biggest thing ever. Well, why does your brand not have that traffic anyway? Why are people not subscribing? Why are people not signing up for your email list? Why are they not downloading your ebooks? Why are they not buying shit from you? Well, clearly you have this ideology of this is how you should be, but other people aren't attaching value to that. And you need to understand that whatever archetype you live in, that how you take that information and then also perceive others, because just because I might be a passion person doesn't mean, or a passion brand doesn't mean that I'm not going to be able to have to work with a visionary, right? And, you know, I have, like, laying out, like, okay, here's my communication style, here's your communication style, how do we meet in the middle, right? And the same thing goes with your brand kind of going forward, is you got to meet your consumers in the middle. If you're so caught up in, like, I'm the fucking shit, like, you're not Nike, you can't play that game yet. Maybe someday, but right now, for most small business owners and non-Fortune 1 companies, right, you don't get to play that game. You have to be, okay, I have to find a way to bring this in. So
that's perfect. No, I love it. And I think that's a great summation of the topic, talking about your brand and role in the fitness industry. So perfect. Full circle. Everything works out.
I'm going to throw one more thing into that circle.
Oh,
I think
drop it in. Drop it in.
How this all ends here. So how do we turn this all into tangibles? Now we're all like, this is, now I need to figure out who I am and my style and everything. Okay, once you do, then that's when you meet up with a designer, right? Like, the worst part, this sounds so bad. No, it's not the worst part. Meeting with clients and being like, okay, tell me about yourself when I'm trying to brand that. You're like, okay, we gotta go all the way back then. Now when you're gonna be prepared to go into this conversation with a friend who knows a little bit of graphic design, right? So all this is just preparing you for that. Then you have an understanding of, okay, what colors resonate with me? Just pull out a picture that you like on the internet. Boom, I like this picture. Let's see if we can turn this into, you know, the essence of me, with determination and my vision as, like, the style and flavor of my Eunice.
There we go. We're gonna have to edit that out. But it's perfect. And I'm sorry, one last thing, Jess, you brought it all the way back that I love. Actionable things, right? We love TED Talks, we love all these things, but a lot of times you get so caught up in the concept of what you need to be doing. You need to go out there and start making some steps today after listening to this. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, real quick, before we end, where can everyone find you? Where can they find more information? All that kind of good stuff.
Okay, well, you can find us at fitnessbreakroom.com. You can find us on Instagram at fitnessbreakroom.
Fitness Break Room.
Fitness Break Room.
The marketing person. Jesus. Which one are you, Vision? Open them eyes up, girl.
Yeah, I know. You can find me at Jessica's Things, and you can find him at Sam
SPOGUE 86 on Instagram.
Making it difficult. I was trying to tag you that. I was like, where I can't find Sam. I don't even know.
It's first initial, last name. It's pretty, and then my year of birth. Or you can just type in the search function, Sam Pogue. And I guarantee I'm the only South Park shaped character that comes up.
There's two, but now I get it. I can see this. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much, and thank you so much for this first part. And then we're going to be bringing you back for the second one. Don't forget to tune in. This is going to be released on Tuesday, and then the follow-up one will be how to build a powerful professional network in the fitness industry. So stay tuned, and again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.